yesterday I was reminded of this game I played as a kid, which I'm sure most people will probably recognize the game, Sonic Adventure Battle 2. So the game, I believe, came out in 2002, so pretty long ago. That was when they introduced Shadow the Hedgehog, which they are doing some of that storyline in the next Sonic movie. At the end of Sonic 2, they showed Shadow. So anyway, in the game, they end up going to like this colony in space. And so there's these space boards. And one of the boards is called Crazy Gadget. And Crazy Gadget has all this technology. And I promise this will make sense. The story. It has all this technology, well, basically like these gravity machines. So you have to in order to get from like complete the board, you have to go up and down and side to side and really figure out how to do it, when you need to go up and when you need to go down, and get to which platform, etc. So when I first played it, it was pretty, difficult to figure out. And I was a young teen when I played this game. And it probably took me a long time to time wise to get through the game, several minutes, I'm sure. But I eventually figured out, turn the gravity here, turn it the gravity there, go this way, go that way. This monster is going to be waiting here, go kill that, robot thing, etc., etc. Eventually I did complete the whole game, and I got good enough at the whole game that I won, because you collect emblems every time you win a board, that you get different grades on how well you do it. So I did beat the game well enough to get A's on every board. So there were time limit ones that you could get an emblem for. I don't remember how many you could get in total, but you had to get all A's to get one particular emblem too. And there was this chow garden, like these little kind of baby things that you take care of. I did it all. I raised the chows and taught, strengthened them, etc. I had one named Mango that was just a beast, and I did everything for that game and completed it fully. So I got super 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 good at the game. So one day, my youngest sister Tina, she was trying to beat Crazy Gadget. Now Tina, again, this game came out in 2002, I think, on the GameCube and stuff, when everybody got it. I think in Japan it first came out in 2001. She was born in 95. So I was born in 89, she's born in 95. And again, this is probably like around 2002 ish, if not 2003. So she's struggling to beat Crazy Gadget, but she wants to beat the game, and she's having some trouble and she just can't figure it out, right? So she's like, "Will you beat this board for me?" And I don't know why. I don't remember the story enough to know why I didn't want to do it for her. I don't know if I had other things I wanted to do, because it wouldn't have took me that long to do it. But I don't know if it's because I was busy doing something else, and that I'm always busy doing something else, like writing or whatever. So who knows? I could have been writing Dragon Ball Z fan fiction for all I know. Um, but maybe she had the TV and I wanted the TV, and so I was bitter. I don't know the reason why I didn't want to do it for her. Maybe I strongly felt within myself she needed to do herself. I don't remember why. But I didn't want to do it, and I was like, no, I'm not beating the board for you. And so she went to my parents, and they're like, beat the board for her, beat the board for her. And so I was upset. And so I decided to be really petty about it. So I take the remote control and I start playing the game, playing it, thoroughly, do the whole board and killing that monster there, go left, right, up, down, etc. And she's, watching, all like, yay, this board's gonna be defeated. And so when you get to the end of a Sonic board, there's a big golden ring. It's always like been like that. And so and it says like gold, it's like flashing on there. So when it gets to the point where you can see the big golden ring, I just turn the game off. I just turn the game off. And she just falls over and starts crying. And I don't I obviously I did it to be mean. I knew it was mean. I thought it was funny, but it was mean. And I didn't realize how mean it was, I guess, until her reaction, which I thought was an overreaction. But again, she's little. She's probably 6, 7. So this was really mean. Um, and then everyone starts scolding me like, Christine, that was so mean. That was so mean. Now I don't want you guys to think I was just a mean big sister. This is probably one of the meanest things I did to her. Which I talked to her about this yesterday, and she didn't even remember it. I'm like, you don't remember that? She's like, no, this isn't ringing any bells. But but they scolded me, and so I had to replay the game again and beat it for her, etc. So I guess she won the game eventually. But that's what happened. So anyway, I thought about this story. This memory came back to me yesterday because I was going back and forth with an ethics professor over abortion. I was on a thread, and I asked someone a question like, well, when does my life have value? When was I a being worthy of being protected against violence? Something like that. And so the ethics professor, which I didn't know he was an ethics professor at first, chimed in, and he ended up posting an article from Salon. And I'll be honest, my first reaction was ew, because it was from Salon. And so the article, it was a defense of Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Jackson, when she was asked when does life begin, and she didn't really have an answer, and people were like, oh, that's a really complex question, etc. Blah blah. I'm like, technically it's not a complex question. My life as an individual being, my human development began same time yours did, when that sperm met the egg. Open a biology book, an embryology book, that's what it will say. So objectively, scientifically, like that's the moment, right? But they're like, oh, but it's more complicated than that. They're thinking about personhood and life in a more philosophical sort of sense rather than the technical biological thing that I think pretty much matters. But I guess then you could question from there, why does it matter? So in this article, it relied a lot on, or made the whole case basically around personhood is centered around the idea of that you have to be conscious. And it offered a symmetry of, which I've seen a lot of people use this. They'll say, oh, well, if you're brain dead and you're at the end of your life with your consciousness or whatever, people would consider at that point that you kind of don't exist anymore. That's the end of your life. So if your end of your life is basically when your mind is like gone or whatever, then it makes sense to say, hey, well, your life doesn't actually begin until you are conscious. So to me, that doesn't make much sense, or at least I'm not gonna say it doesn't make sense, but there's things that are wrong with that. First of all, just because you were brain dead at the hospital, because we're asking these questions to get to the point of, hey, can someone unalive you, right? I couldn't just go around the hospital unplugging people. That would still be murder. I'd still be charged for that, regardless if that person is, brain dead or not. That's something that the family comes together and decide, or maybe they don't have to decide. Maybe it's on the form of the person who's there, and they honor their wishes or whatever. But we're talking about someone who is literally at the end of their life versus someone who's at the beginning of their life. If that person who was brain dead was going to magically be fine, not magically, let's just say organically, naturally, just kind of reboot and be good as new in like 9 months or less, we wouldn't be like, oh, that's the end of their life. We would just say they're, I don't know, going through a phase or something. We wouldn't just be like, okay, it's okay to kill them now. That wouldn't be our argument. So Trent Horn had this conversation with Destiny in the big 3-hour debate that they had on the whatever podcast, and it's a good abortion conversation. I've talked about it before.
Future conscious experiences, if they're impossible, you are not a person.
Correct.
So the symmetry for that, and in fact, I'm actually being generous because the symmetry would not be improbable, it'd be possible.
Sure.
So my point would just be then, if a person stops existing when future conscious experience becomes impossible, why can't we say a person exists as long as the future experiences are possible, and a person starts existing at the first moment those experiences are possible?
Even if you lose consciousness temporarily, that doesn't mean that you lose your ability to be a person. So there's some kind of permanency there. So if the fact that it's permanent is when we view like, okay, your life is over, then how come we're not looking at when it's possible? Then that's when we should consider it to be alive. So I wasn't fond of the article, and I think it hinges like far too much on the consciousness argument. And then I said, I don't want someone to pick and choose when I have value. And I referenced, that's what people did in the 1800s. Reason why I was thinking about his argument and meditating it and thought about this story about Sonic. The reason why I thought about the Sonic situation, uh, is because if you're going to argue that early fetuses aren't persons because they don't have consciousness. That's what I'm kind of was thinking about. Like, I was about to beat the board. I was right in front of the goal, the big golden ring. And before I reached the ring, I turned off the game to be cruel to my sister because I could. Because that power was in my hand. But if I had just touched that ring, reached that ring, like I was right there. I timed it like that on purpose to be as cruel as possible, I guess. She would have got, the board would have been completed and you would have gone on to the next phase. So if you're a fetus and you don't have consciousness, and by the way, there's a lot about consciousness we don't understand. So I think we should be careful about how much we think we're certain about. I was telling my older sister today that we stopped doing surgeries on newborns without anesthesia like in the 80s. I think it was like the late 80s. So they don't, there's a lot of things they don't know. But my point is, it to me it doesn't make sense if the fetus is right there at something it's going to achieve, and you're just like, because I can, I'm just going to cut you off and reason that it's moral to do that because you haven't yet achieved it, but you need to achieve it to end up like she needed to reach that ring to complete the game. All fetuses need to reach, are, well, they're going to reach that level of consciousness if you just continue allowing them to progress, unless there's some kind of abnormality or something that that just ends up not happening or something, some kind of defect with your brain or whatever. But our natural progression is inherent to our nature to be of the rational kind, to have that level of consciousness. So to argue that that stage isn't, like, you're not valuable at that stage, how do you become valuable if you're not allowed to live past that stage? That's what I don't understand. Like, Destiny kept saying, like, I admire, or I value conscious experience. And I think that's a pretty profound moral statement, or to say that you value it like that. So it's assuming there's something good about that. But okay, so you value uh a conscious experience. So why is it that, so his cutoff is about 20 weeks. That's what Destiny would argue. And before then, he defended a bunch of crazy things when Trent Horn was asking like probing questions like, okay, let's say that they grew a child or whatever in the womb, but he wouldn't. He thinks it's intuition pumping if you say something like a child. Like, so let's say they're growing a fetus, and doctors can do something to it, so the fetus will continue to grow, but it's never going to get develop consciousness. Could you use that as like a sex doll? And Destiny was like, yes. He would say stuff like that. And Trent was just like, okay, we'll have to allow our audience to just listen to that and determine if that's good or bad, you know. But he would say things like that. So up into the point, like, it doesn't matter how many you have, until it gets to this point when it's like, at 20 weeks. And it's like, okay, well, then at that point, they're going to develop some kind of consciousness, or it's like on the line or something. So then at that point, you protect it. But if you value conscious experience, why wouldn't you protect beings who have the capability of who are on a self-determined path to be those conscious beings and have a conscious experience? And here's another thing. I was talking to my oldest sister about this afternoon, just running through some of my thoughts on this. And I said, okay, but even if you don't have a conscious experience or whatever, or like you're not self-aware or whatever in the womb, that doesn't mean that there's not value in how you're developing anyway. Like if you're a fetus, you're swallowing amniotic fluid and then like peeing it out and then swallowing it again. So it's kind of gross, but um but doing that strengthens, like you're strengthening your body, you're strengthening your lungs and all that stuff to get ready for that moment when you come out and you take a gasp of air. So all these things that are going on in the womb are still so important into developing you as a whole, even if you're aware of it or not. Like what I've started following this page on Facebook of this woman who shows like 40 ultrasounds, because she'll show the picture of the fetus in the womb, and then she'll show the picture later of the baby when they're out the womb, and they're making the same gestures, the same facial expressions, and those same mannerisms and stuff. And and it just really goes to show you this is obviously the same person in and out. And even when you watch a toddler, watch a baby develop, watch a baby grow, and the little things they do that you notice on the journey to eventually being able to crawl and being able to walk, that is all a journey. So to just be like, no, you're not valuable until you have a conscious experience. You can't have one if you murk me. And because the fetus has a future like ours, we know that they're going to develop into. I couldn't be me if I wasn't a fetus who was allowed to live. I couldn't be me. I wouldn't be here. I could sympathize with the people who are in the womb, because if they are in the womb, they do exist. Because who else are you killing if you would need to kill them if they didn't exist? And knowing that was my origin, why wouldn't I sympathize or empathize with that human and want them to not be destroyed in a way that I wouldn't want someone to destroy me?
Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you go to blacktnews.com and check out different articles, different videos, and also check out our merchandise. If you like what I do, you can also support at the website on the donate page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and also that notification bell. God bless.